you've done a survey and now you want to analyze your data, follow these steps and you will get a good grade afterwards. Let's start with the data collection. This is where most students do the biggest mistakes. First of all, you need research question. Every research question you can think of consists of several hypotheses, and all of these hypotheses imply how you can perform your data collection and later on the data analysis. So defining the research question and these hypotheses is very important to get a clear vision on how you should collect your data. The biggest mistake students normally make here is that the research question or the hypotheses in themselves are not clear enough. Many students state in their hypotheses very broad topics. So it's, for example, sleep is not good or something like that. If you have such a broad research question, you cannot operationalize constructs in a good way. What does it mean to have a bad sleep? What is a good sleep? What defines a good sleep in itself? When do I know that I have achieved a good sleep? How does it feel? So there are many things you have to break down before you really can have a precise research question. If you have a rather precise research question, for example, drinking coffee late at night is not good for your sleep, after that you can state very precise hypotheses. No clear research question equals no clear hypothesis. So if you have a good research question in the first place, then you can state your hypothesis. So you are abstracting your hypothesis from your research question. The next mistake many students make in this stage is that the hypothesis itself is also not clear enough. Hypotheses can normally be divided into two entities. The first entity, hypothesis for differences, and the second entity is the hypothesis of relationships. If we keep the example with the sleep and the coffee, then you could say people who drink coffee have worse sleep than people who do not drink coffee. So that's a comparison right in here. That's a perfectly good way to state difference hypothesis. The relationship hypothesis, on the other hand, would be more like the more coffee people drink, the worse the sleep gets. So we have a relationship between the amount of coffee drunk and sleep quality. The mistake here, what many students make, is that they mix up these two elements of hypotheses so that you have something like people who drink a lot of coffee have worse sleep than people who drink not that much coffee. So it's more like a mix of both. And you can do this, you can also perform analysis on this, but it gets very hard to decide which method you should use to research this hypothesis. The research design is defined on how you want to collect your data and what data you want to collect. If you try to get differences, you can always use stuff like, I have two different groups which are manipulated in a sense. So you have one group that drinks coffee and one group that does not drink coffee. You can compare those two groups. On the other hand, if you know that you want to analyze relationships, then the amount of coffee becomes a variable in itself, so that you can look at the relationship between the amount people drink coffee and the sleep quality. In a nutshell, the research design, which can be derived from the research question and the clear hypothesis, also implicate how you could analyze your data and which data you should collect to really answer the research question. So the mistake most students make here in the research design is that they have a data hypothesis mismatch. And the instruments is very profound. So do I have a survey, an online survey or pen and paper? Do I interview people? Are there physical instruments like in the physics or in medicine? You have many different measurements you can take. Do I have a database which I can use to enrich my data I collect? There are many different instruments you can use to collect your data, and all of this should be point on your research question and your hypothesis. So you do not have the mismatch of data and hypothesis. The next step is that we have like a sample target. So what is sample targeting? We look at something like, I want to analyze data on leadership skills, but I ask people who are not in a leadership position or never have been in a leadership position. Then you are asking people who are not fitting our research question. So you have a choice here. The first choice is, do I define my population as big as possible so that I always have a good chance to find the sample I need? Or do I kick out people who does not fit the description I need? So for example, if you have people who needs leadership experience, people without leadership experience should not be considered in the data analysis later on. So these are 3 very helpful tips on how you can get your data collection straight. There are many topics more. In a deep dive I will explain this even further. If you avoid these 3 mistakes I've mentioned here, you will be good to go in the data collection.